Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen. I do all kinds of dastardly things with microphones because I'm a ring announcer. And I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two buddies who both bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first from New York, Marc Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
Damn right we do. Nothing much. Running around, trying to, okay, game just ended. I was trying to keep track of Judge tonight, see if my man was going to hit 61 and tie Maris, but it did not happen. Looks like he just got walked in his last at bat. So that's the end of that. Now I can focus on MMA.
Nice. That's funny because I just kind of slipped into like a little Yankees announcer when I said your name. Marc Priaulx. What was that guy's name? He passed away, didn't he?
Yes.
The Yankees announcer.
Oh, boy. Man, it's bad that I can't remember this man's name.
At shortstop, number 2, Derek Jeter.
And introducing from Florida, Omar, the Nicaraguan Nightmare Artola. What's up, my friend? You're muted, bud. Well.
Whoops. Now you got me thinking about the Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire run and how legendary it was until we all found out it was complete bullshit.
Dude, that was the best. I always say that I lived on my street that I grew up on. It was literally like 5 houses in a row with boys my age in the houses. So every day we were playing in like one yard or the other, and I can vividly picture still to this day like different dads yelling out the windows of houses, being like, "McGuire hit another one, Sosa hit another one," like yelling it out the windows to us all summer.
So much controversy, so many broken hearts.
Yeah, man. Baseball was like the original steroids controversy. Now I feel like it's so much in MMA, but although it's died down a little bit in MMA, but baseball, man, that was crazy.
I just wonder if they're a lot quieter about it nowadays. It's just easier to get away with maybe now. And maybe not having a bat full of cork or whatever the hell else break off in the middle of a game is probably also not what you want.
Yeah, no, they test for it now. Dudes get suspended.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just might be a little bit different maybe now than it was then.
Yeah, that's why I'm into this thing, man. I'm into him possibly breaking the record cleanly, since everyone else that broke it, all 3 of them were juiced.
Let's just hope we don't get a TJ incident from this Aaron Judge man.
Oh, God.
You don't need steroids when you're a literal giant human being.
That does help.
Yeah, we say that all the time, and look who be popping. That's all I'm saying. John Jones.
Well, gentlemen, this is not a baseball podcast. This is an MMA podcast.
Yes,
and we're here to
we talk about picograms on here.
Talk about picograms. That's right. We're going to discuss a bunch of the fights from this past weekend. UFC Fight Night: Sandhagen versus Song. We're going to throw a few of them into our lightning round. We're going to find out who rose and who fell in Marc's very own ranking system. We're going to find out what's going on in the world of MMA with inside the MMA sphere, and then we're going to look ahead to this weekend. No UFC, but we do have Bellator 285, Henderson versus Queally. So, before we get into any of this, gentlemen, let us first thank our audience. If you're watching this on YouTube, once again, thank you so much. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, if you like what you've been watching, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that whenever we drop a new episode or new clips, you get them. Hey, if you want audio only, we got you. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, find us on social media at @&new_MMA show. Don't forget the underscore. That being said, gentlemen, let's get into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Cory the Sandman Sandhagen, who this past weekend at UFC Fight Night at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, defeated Song Yadong by TKO at the end of round number 4. Boy, it was a night of cuts. This one may be the nastiest one. It's arguable. I'm sure we'll get into it during this episode. Mark, let me send it over to you first. What would your take, not just of the cut that ended the fight, but of Cory Sandhagen's performance overall?
Yeah, this was a great main event. It was a nice showcase for just how good each of these guys are and how good the bantamweight division is as a whole. And it was just what Cory needed. Like, he put on the type of performance that put him right back at the top of everyone's mind as a guy who could be a champion in this division. It was absolutely what he needed to do in order to bounce back from the couple tough losses that he has had. It played out more or less how I imagined. The cardio for Song held up. But other than that, Cory did start to figure him out as the rounds went on. Song's explosion was a bit less of a factor as the rounds went on. Cory's variety of attack really started to pay dividends. So kind of went how I imagined it would. But as you said, as much as Cory was winning the rounds, the fight really centered around this cut over Song Yadong's eye. It was a nasty cut. Night of nasty cuts, as you said. I don't know which one was worse. I kind of think the other one might have even been fucking worse than this one. We'll get to that. But this was a crazy cut over Song's eye. As soon as you saw it, right away you knew we were going to be watching that cut all fight long, wondering if they were going to stop him, wondering how long they'd let him go, wondering if Cory could make it worse. And Cory was absolutely aiming for it. He knew exactly what was going on in there. So, you're wondering when it's going to get stopped, and finally it does. And it was a fair stoppage for sure. It had gotten worse. Cory kept hitting it. It was going more across the brow, which was making the doctor nervous, and rightfully so. It was a fair stoppage. Cory earned that W for sure, and he really came in there with a great strategy. I loved how he came in looking a level change and he kind of touched on this post-fight, but I loved him using that level change and shooting the occasional takedown, even if he wasn't truly going for it, because it kind of stripped Song of the ability to plant his feet and sit back on big power punches, and it worked like a charm. Because Cory kept him guessing with that. That threat of the takedown was constantly in Song's mind, and just because of that, it let Cory get into that range more easily than he would have otherwise, because Song had to kind of take the back steps every now and then because of the threat of that takedown. So Cory was able to get into the range. It let him land cleaner. It was really a perfect way to fight Song, and nearly a perfect fight, I would say, for Cory Sandhagen, and a huge bounce-back W.
Omar, let's bring you in here. What was your impressions of Cory Sandhagen's kind of a stamp performance in the bantamweight division?
Well, considering I didn't pick Sandhagen to win this, I don't think, it was definitely a you must have forgot performance. His recent performances have been against some of the top guys. And I think I had a lot of confidence in Yadong to be able to kind of rise to the occasion. But Cory did exactly what Cory does, man. He uses movement. He's a very, very skilled fighter when it comes to his movement and his range of movement. He does a lot of lateral movement throughout those fights, definitely keeping Song Yadong guessing as to where he's going to be, making him very difficult to catch. And those step-in elbows were disgusting. They were absolutely disgusting. Not enough guys use that. I think a lot of guys should be using that, especially when they crash. Like, we see a lot of guys almost colliding heads sometimes when they're trying to kind of attack each other. If every once in a while these guys would come in, with an elbow forward or an elbow across their own face and crash in that way, we would see a lot more of these cuts, a lot more damage done, on one side as opposed to some accidental headbutt or something like that. But regardless, it was a fantastic performance from the Sandman. I feel bad for Yadong because he couldn't see out of that eye once it was cut. Apparently, it got very difficult for him to see. I can only imagine, and so it does not take away from the win. That's not really where I want to go with that. But I would still want to see what Yadong could do had that not happened to his eye. I guess, right? Maybe it goes the same exact way. That's fine, but I guess I was still left with a little bit of curiosity as to how that would still go had the injury not affected his performance as much as it did.
Yeah. Right after the fight, Mark, Cory Sandhagen called out, I believe, Chito Vera, and Chito said, if you want it, come get it. Do you think, though, that there's a better name out there in the bantamweight division for Cory Sandhagen's next opponent?
Yeah, so he threw out a few things. He threw out, I want to say he mentioned the Jan O'Malley fight as well, but he mentioned specifically by name Chito and Merab. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I almost feel like it doesn't even make sense to try to matchmake Cory Sandhagen right now because you have Algeo and TJ coming up on the horizon here, and on that same card you have Jan and O'Malley. And I almost feel like you got to let this division play out before you know what you're going to do with it. Like, Sandhagen has already fought Algeo. He's already fought TJ. He's already fought Jan. So I feel like you got to see who wins and loses these fights. You got to see who's going to get that title shot. Is it going to be Chito right away? Is it going to be something else? Maybe O'Malley gets a crazy night. We really have no idea who's even getting the next title shot right now or who's going to be the champion for that matter. So I feel like you kind of got to let those two fights play themselves out, see what the landscape looks like after that, and then try to pick up the pieces and match these guys up in a way that makes sense. But you got 7 killers sitting at the top of bantamweight right now. I would have said 8, but we'll get to the sad story of my man Jose calling it quits, which I don't understand. But you can even still say it if you want to throw Dom in this mix still. But him aside, you got 7 guys looking great up there at the top right now.
Omar, what about you? Would you be excited to see Sandhagen versus Vera or any other names?
I got to be honest. I like the Vera call out. I love the Merab call out. The Merab call out is very interesting. If I had to choose between the two of them stylistically, I think the Merab one is just more interesting overall.
Really?
Yeah. I love my man Chito. I would be
agree.
down for that fight. Don't get me wrong. But just stylistically, it just seems like a more interesting fight.
I agree. I'm super intrigued by Sandhagen and
Yeah. So I would definitely be down for either one. From a timing perspective, I think it may not be a bad thing, right? If Cory didn't really injure himself and he's good to go after that last fight, he wants to make a quick turnaround before the end of the year. I mean, I doubt Aljamain and, any of the winners from the next 3 fights that are going to happen in the next month, I doubt any one of them are going to have a quick turnaround and go back in, before December. So if Cory thinks he can do it, Marlon wants to do it, or Merab wants to do it, let him do it if it's before the end of the year. If it's after that, at that point, just wait until, we see what happens and then just kind of go from there. But if you're going to schedule something, I would just do it now.
I can see both of those. I can see that matchup coming together because both of those guys are the types of fighters that don't duck anybody. Marlon Vera very much is anybody, anytime, and Cory Sandhagen wants to test himself against the very best. And I can absolutely see them, squaring off later this year.
I almost feel like that's the only one you can book right now if you're going to book something that happens in 2022. Because, I can't imagine them booking Chito in something. Because wouldn't he be like, well, wait a second. If Jan beats O'Malley, aren't I fighting for the title? Because who the hell else would? I doubt it's Jan already, right? So I don't see him taking a fight. Obviously, these other guys all still have to fight a month from now. So the only 2 guys that you really could try to book before the year's over are Sandhagen and Merab.
Although when you mentioned the possibility of Sandhagen against O'Malley, I am very intrigued by that. From O'Malley's standpoint. What a test for Sean O'Malley that would be.
Yeah.
He's
fucking fighting Piotr Jan first.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is let's see how he does against Piotr Jan first.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might be getting turned back in that one. We will see.
Yeah, man. O'Malley is he's stepping up into the Shark Tank of the top of 135 pounds now. So
he needs to look the best he's ever looked. A lot of that gamesmanship that he puts on, it very well might not work against Piotr. And so,
yeah,
I don't know. Remains to be seen. Who knows?
All right. Anything else you guys want to say about this main event before we move on?
I'll match up Song real quick.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
I got one that I love. I love every single thing about this matchup. I want Song Yadong and Ricky Simone.
Ooh.
Ricky Simone has been looking like a fucking animal. My man is long overdue for a big shot against someone. This satisfies that. I think Simone does what I would love to see Song tested against with someone that's strong in the wrestling department. I think Song's athleticism and power is something I'd love to see Simone tested against. I think that matchup checks every box for me.
Good job, Mark. Omar, any names?
Yeah. No, I would definitely second that. Because, otherwise, the only other names that you kind of, that would really make sense, because even though Yadong lost, he lost to his top contender. And I don't really think he should go far back as a result of that. I doubt he would have lost really any traction, or as much traction as a result of this past fight than other people have. But you have people like Dominic Cruz right around his radar, which I wouldn't hate, but I'm not as intrigued in there as I am for the Ricky Simone fight. They're both just so decently well-rounded. The only thing is I think Ricky Simone's wrestling is probably better than Yadong's is, but Yadong trains with a lot of wrestlers, a lot of good wrestlers in Alpha Male and Team Alpha Male, so it makes for an intriguing question of matchup.
Yeah, it's kind of like Song has sneaky wrestling. Is it good enough for Simone? Simone has sneaky striking. Is it good enough for Song? Like, it's kind of like they're almost the flip of each other.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Congrats to Cory Sandhagen for making it onto the marquee this week. Okay, down.
I'm allergic to something. My eyes are fucking going crazy over here.
Oh.
Anyway, continue.
Thank you for that information.
I needed to tell the people watching why I keep blinking like I'm fucking having a seizure.
Okay, in the co-main event, what a fucking fight. In the middleweight division, Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues defeated Chidi and Njokuani by TKO. Official time coming at 1 minute 27 seconds of round number 2. Omar, in a back-and-forth battle at 185 pounds, your boy HoboCop gets it done. Give us your reaction.
So I think I'm just going to call him RoboCop from now on, because he called himself RoboCop. He called himself RoboCop.
We know it's RoboCop, but we have deemed it HoboCop.
HoboCop.
Agreed. I've never heard him say RoboCop, though, so in my head he said it HoboCop. But now that I've heard him say RoboCop, it kind of takes away from the myth just a little bit. But if you guys want to keep saying HoboCop, I'm down. That's fantastic.
I'm never saying anything else.
What a fucking fight. What an absolute barn burner this was. And the crazy shit is, you kind of thought in the beginning of this fight, especially with the way it was going, that Chidi was just going to put on another one of his performances. Caught RoboCop coming in, almost for a takedown, and ate an entirely made knee right in his face. I don't even want to know what bone, what did what to cause the split in the middle of his forehead to do what it did, but it did. And there was vein that was visible. A whole tube of blood that your body makes was absolutely outside of his body.
I was looking at that picture trying to figure out what the fuck that was. Wow, it's 100% the biggest vein I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
he's not human.
That shit was so thick. I don't understand.
That's how cyborgs look,
guys.
Bro.
Here's the thing about cuts like this and many other cuts like it that have happened in the UFC. If I was in a fight and got a cut like that, I'd be like, oh my God, stop.
100%.
These guys get cut like this.
I'm dying. Let me call my family before I die.
Take me to the hospital. These guys get gashes on their face, and looks like they don't even feel it.
Yeah. They're like, put the Q-tip in there.
Yeah. All the way in.
And to be fair, as soon as he got hit with that knee, he took maybe a second to be rocked and then started shooting immediately back at Chidi with punches that were going to knock him out if they had landed cleanly. It was a wild fight. And then at one point, obviously, RoboCop comes back and like lays out Chidi in the same round. Chidi has to get back up. It has to fight and be defensive. This became a back and forth brawl in the first round. And by the second round, it was like Chidi, I don't even think Chidi really thought he was going to end up being in those positions for this fight. Mm-hmm. But the man got worked. He got put in some really uncomfortable positions. His cardio was tested. and Hobocop came out on top, man. And good for him. He worked for that fight. He worked for that win. And he deserves all the credit involved in getting it. So good for him. And I'm glad the UFC spends money on good doctors that can sew people up, because he looked immaculate after he got sewed up.
He really
He looked fantastic.
Yeah.
So good on them, because he looked terrible beforehand.
That scar is going to blend in really well to all those. He has like a lot of folds and like wrinkly folds on his brow.
Helpful, yeah.
Mark, I feel like 185 pounds is such a great weight class for just bangers like this. You're dealing with very large men who cut down to 185 who just can crack. What was your take on this cracker between Gregory Rodrigues and Chidi Njokuani?
Yeah, I mean, Omar nailed this, but this thing was just a car crash from start to finish. I mean, Chidi hurts Rodrigues right out of the gate with the knee, gives him the third eyebrow. Rodrigues is somehow unfazed, continues to take damage, and for like 3 minutes, you know, he couldn't really touch Chidi. Like, it was kind of playing out pretty much how we thought it was going to, because of Chidi's technique advantage. But then Rodrigues did what he does. He somehow just crashes inside and starts swinging wildly, and these guys can't get him off them. He does it every single fight, and you know, he gets matched up with guys like a Chidi, and you're like, he's not going to be able to do that. Chidi's too long. He's got too good technique, too much power. He'll keep him honest. And he still does it. He just crashes into that range. He starts throwing hammers. Guys start to back up. They can't reset themselves, you know, on their game. And as Omar said, he ends up dropping Chidi before that round's even over. So crazy round one. It didn't even feel like we were going to make it to round two for a while there. Then you got to get through Rodrigues getting examined by the doc. You're thinking maybe this isn't even going to see round two this way. He gets to go out there. They go right back to scrapping. And before you know it, he gets this real nice head throw takedown. And honestly, at that point, Chidi didn't even look tired to me. He didn't look hurt. He was defending. He was looking for ways to get up. And then Rodrigues lands that short elbow on the ground. And I think it hurt. Like, I feel like the commentary was kind of just like, Chidi got overwhelmed. I thought he looked fine. And then all of a sudden that little short elbow landed, and all of a sudden Chidi didn't react. And I think Rodrigues saw it right away, hit him with another short elbow, which had him badly hurt. And then that's when the barrage of punches started. So I think Rodrigues just snuck in a beautiful short elbow as soon as he got that side control. And that was that. So incredible job from Rodrigues to gut that out. That win from him, I think, makes Armen Petrosyan look really good, since he's the only guy that's beaten Rodrigues in the UFC thus far, which in turn makes Caio Borralho look really good for having beaten Petrosyan. And this is kind of going along with your point of middleweight quietly has like a bunch of interesting dudes in this 15 to 25, 30 range right now who look like killers, who are going to be interesting as they continue climbing up in this division and kind of taking on some of these established names.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of established names, Omar, let me give you the chance to go first this time, talking about matchup potential for Mr. Hobocop at 185 pounds. If you're the matchmaker for the UFC, what are you doing with Hobocop next?
There's one fight that, and this is probably why I don't have the job of a matchmaker, but there's one fight that just seems so utterly ridiculous and yet equally as interesting at the same time. So now hear me out.
Okay.
What if Gregory Hobocop Rodrigues fights Anthony Hernandez, who also just won this past weekend?
We're going to talk about
Anthony Hernandez might be one of the most unassuming human beings in the 185-pound division. If I had Anthony Hernandez stand next to Hobocop, and you didn't know who those two men were, and I told you they're about to get into a fight, there's no way that you choose Anthony Hernandez to win that fight. And yet, that man has probably every opportunity to win that fight just as much as Hobocop does. So it makes for... it makes me very curious.
Well, I mean, his nickname is Fluffy, so that's pretty unassuming.
He ain't even that fluffy no more.
Sure,
No,
yeah, man. Yeah, not at all. Mark, what's your take? Do you agree and disagree?
I mean, I have no problem with that fight. It'd be super interesting to see, a guy who, I mean, we're going to talk about Hernandez in a minute, but a guy who can put on the pace that he can, you would think might be able to handle these barrages from Rodrigues, so it'd be really interesting. I was going a different route. I was going to kind of give, is it Rodrigues? Should I be saying Rodrigues here? It's not.
I believe he goes by Rodrigues, which is sort of the exception for Brazilians.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was going to give him a pretty significant jump here. I mean, he's 4-1 now. He has the one loss, as I said, to Petrosian, but he's 4-1 in the UFC. Massive performance here in a co-main event. Guts it out. I was going to give him a jump. He loves to scrap. Another guy who loves to scrap is Chris Curtis. And I think those two might just swing until someone fell over or 15 minutes ticked away.
Okay. I like it. Chris Curtis coming off a loss.
Yeah.
Don't care. Because usually
Chris Curtis is also ranked 10-plus spots.
18.
Above
That's true.
Rodrigues, yeah.
I like it. I still like it. I'm a Chris Curtis fan. For sure. I'm a fan of a lot of guys at 185 now.
Yeah. There was a point where I was thinking about he probably should get somebody higher ranked than Anthony Hernandez. But like I said, even with the Chris Curtis call out or the pick, I'm still just stylistically more interested to see him against Anthony Hernandez. I'm just so curious.
I get it.
And I'm sure we're going to get the update, so I'll wait to ask you that on where these guys are rankings-wise. Just for shits and giggles, what about Chidi, man? Chidi came into this fight with a lot of hype because he's been on a tear, knocking dudes out. Mark, let me stick with you this time. Give me a name at 185 where you think Chidi should get matched up with next.
So, yeah, he takes a loss here. Definitely slows him down a little bit. I think I'm going to give him a chance to kind of bounce right back into the mix. Junyoung Park is another guy who recently took a loss to Gregory Rodrigues, but who has looked good otherwise. I know he's booked against Joseph Holmes, I think like in 2 weeks here or something along those lines, but that's a guy who I expect him to beat, and if he does, I think him and Chidi are in pretty similar places.
Sure.
I think that could be a banger.
Omar, you have any other suggestions for Bang Bang?
Yeah, the irony is this is the one where I feel like I'm going to go up on this one just because Chidi still has a lot of, recognizability. His style is still very interesting. I also think that fight was, frankly, 50-50 until it wasn't. So, I don't really give him too much shit for how that fight went down. I think a fight between him and Ian Einish would be interesting to see. Not to mention, it would be an opportunity to take a pretty decent step up in the rankings as well.
Nice. All right, let's move on. Just before the co-main event in the featherweight division, very interesting fight between Andre Touchy Fili and Bill Algeo took place at 145 pounds. And Andre Fili takes the W by split decision, 29-28 on two scorecards. Bill Algeo getting his own 29-28 mark. Let me send this one over to you first. What was your take of this close fight between Fili and Algeo?
This is another one where these guys went at it from the jump, and we knew that they would. Andre Fili seemed to be the fighter who may have had more in his bag. He was a bit more high level with the striking. But Bill Algeo, once he started moving forward, was having a lot of success of his own. And he probably took that second round, which is when he really did start the moving forward after he dropped round one. But it comes down to this third round, man, and it's really one of the best examples we've seen in recent times of how weird it is to score a fight. Like, other sports are so much more straightforward in determining winners and losers. Even other combat sports. Yeah. MMA just has so many damn angles to it. And in this round 3, you have Andre Fili taking Bill Algeo down, taking his back, controlling him for like 3.5 minutes, something like that, I think it was. He has an arm triangle attempt. He has 2 different rear naked choke attempts, one of which looked pretty tight. But all the while, Bill Algeo is throwing these punches kind of like over his own head as he has his back to Fili. And they're landing pretty damn clean. I think they said in the broadcast he lands like 40 of these things. And they're landing like oddly clean, almost to the point that I didn't understand why Fili was allowing so many of them to land when he was the one that had Algeo's back. Like it seems like he could have stopped it if he wanted to. And he's just sitting there kind of eating them, and his head is bouncing a little bit. So as much as it's like, okay, Andre Fili had his back, he's choking him, it kind of, as it goes on, it's like, man, this round feels a little bit odd to score because of all these friggin' punches. So, I mean, gun to my head, I feel like it's got to be Fili. But if you look at it and made decisions, I think more people gave it to Algeo than Fili. So it's a weird round. I think that pride-wise, Andre Fili won that fight, so I'm glad he got the nod in the end. I think he did win the overall fight. I think he did look like he was maybe just one notch above where Algeo is at right now. Like I said last week, Fili is not a guy who would break or go away like Algeo tends to do to people. Fili was in there for the scrap the whole time. And I am glad he got the nod. I think he slightly edged out the overall fight. And that's who Fili can be, man. The guy's very technical, and he has skills anywhere the fight goes. He can beat a lot of guys when he comes in there on. So I was happy to see him get a good win.
Nice, yeah. Omar, what was your reaction to this decision?
Yeah, it was a crazy fucking fight. It was absolutely wild. Algeo got hit with some big shots in the first round. I don't actually remember him actually falling on the floor as a result of any of those shots. Yeah, he ate some clean stuff. They're both super tough, man. Now, the first round definitely I gave to Fili without a question. The second round I definitely gave to Algeo without a question, which, to be honest, I didn't really expect once that first round was over. I thought, Fili had his number. But credit to Algeo for coming back in the second round and picking that one back up. And then, just like Mark said, the third round really just was like a real toss-up. And it was really difficult to really pinpoint exactly how that round was going to be scored and kind of where you were really going to be scoring that fight. Were you going to be scoring it for damage? Were you going to be scoring it for control? And the shots from the top, from a very weird top position, right? Because he had his back taken, but he was still technically on top at that point. And he's like punching backwards. And like Mark said, they were landing. It was sort of like when we watched McGregor shoot shoulder shots at Cerrone and it like broke his nose. And we're all like, fucking shoulder shots are that hard? Like, what is happening right now? And it was kind of the same with these shots from Algeo. They were landing and they were bouncing his head off the canvas quite a bit. Yeah, weird third round. I gave it to Fili personally. So I was glad that he won the fight, but either way, the fight was just completely crazy back and forth the entire time.
Yeah, man. All right, well, let's talk about... Well, let me ask you, do you think Fili won, rightfully?
Yeah, he said he did, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I do.
I missed that. That bearing in mind, Mark, give me a name of who you think Fili should match up with next at featherweight.
I'm going to go Hakeem Dawodu for Andre Fili. He kind of just got knocked down a peg by Julian Erosa. I think him and Fili now are at pretty similar levels. Fili trying to work his way back up where Dawodu kind of just was previously. I think they're a good test for each other and would make for a good fight.
Omar, any other suggestions?
I don't hate that suggestion at all. Concerned about the weight cut at this point. But I don't hate that suggestion at all. I guess if we're not going to get Hakeem Dawodu just as a backup, I would think a fight with Nathaniel Wood would be kind of interesting as well.
Ooh, that's a good fight as well.
How about somebody like Ryan Hall, who also bounced back from a loss recently?
Dude, well, he didn't do shit recently. Ryan Hall hasn't fought in a while. But
that's true.
What is Ryan Hall's deal? Is he hurt? I can't even remember. I think he's hurt.
Did he have surgery,
right?
actually?
Yeah, I think he had surgery on something.
Oh, my bad.
I don't remember.
So I'm trying to look it up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it just says he's out until sometime in 2023, ACL.
What if it just said he's out until sometime and that was it? What about Bill Algeo, who always comes to fight? Mark, where would you match him up with next?
I'm going to go Charles Jourdain.
Woo!
Another two guys who I feel like are in similar places. That fight feels like it could be potentially incredible, and will kind of they're both guys who have shown a lot of potential, but have also shown the ability to be beaten, and I feel like that kind of lets one of them shake himself out a little bit as a factor.
Love that. Omar?
I don't know if this is the right again, another one of these things where I just want to watch this fight because I'm interested. I don't know if it makes any actual business sense. But Pat Sabatini versus Bill Algeo just has crazy shit written all over it.
Dude, so I almost said that, and then for some reason, I didn't actually look this up, but for some reason in my head, I was like, I think they might train together. Does that sound familiar to you, or am I making that up?
No, I don't know anything about that.
So I might have made that up. Are they both from Philly? Maybe that's why that's in my head.
They are both from Pennsylvania, yeah.
But I agree. It would be a great fight.
Well,
Yeah.
all right. All right, boys, let's move on to the opening bout of the main card of UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Song. Going down once again in the middleweight division, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez defeats Marc-Andre Barriault by technical submission via arm triangle at 1 minute 53 seconds of round number 3. Omar, let me kick this one over to you first. What was your impression of the unassuming one, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, getting it done?
I mean, it's crazy. It's like the second guy, too, where I look at Anthony Hernandez and I look at this other guy and I'm like, this other guy looks like an absolute monster. Like, he's, like, jacked. He's got all these credentials. And, like, Anthony Hernandez just seems like some dude who took an MMA class and just got really fucking good at it. And it's crazy because he's really good at it. The pace is absolutely outstanding. The way that he's able to mix up his strikes into his takedowns and just kind of keep people guessing, keep people uncomfortable is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy watching this kid fight. As a New Yorker, or a resident New Yorker of many, many years, I kind of enjoy the fact that his mouth is unsuited for television. He is cursing up a storm, like if he's getting paid per minute or per word. And I absolutely love it. I think it's absolutely hilarious. But he's a good time, man. He's a good personality. He's a fantastic fighter. He makes me want to watch it just to see if he can actually pull this shit off. But if you look at him, man, he doesn't look like your typical MMA fighter.
Sure.
But god damn it, does he get it done against the guys who absolutely do. Good for him, man. I love it.
Yeah, man.
Omar
Absolutely.
is
Mark,
so underwhelmed by the physical appearance of Anthony.
I
he doesn't
am.
have, between his physique and he doesn't have great height for middleweight.
Dude, look at the two animals that the man has fought, right? Like he fought the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu phenom who looks jacked to shit, okay? And then the last guy he just fought, the Marc-Andre guy, he's also pretty jacked to shit.
Yeah.
And like Anthony Hernandez is not. You know what I mean? And so it's just crazy how he absolutely ragdolls some of these guys and like makes them look, first of all, he also makes them look like they're not even strong because he just completely outworks them from beginning to end. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. I love watching it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Mark, let's get you in here on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. What was your take on his performance?
I friggin' love Anthony Hernandez. I love him. The guy is an absolute machine. I'm not sure that he even breathes in there. If you are a fighter who has cardio issues, even if you don't have cardio issues and you just want your cardio to become superhuman, go seek this man out and train with him because the pace that he is going to put on you day after day is going to make it feel like a walk in the park by the time you actually get into a cage for a fight. I mean, he was fighting a guy who is also known for his cardio and also known for putting a pace on people, and you would never even know it because he drowned him and wore him the fuck out throughout the entire fight. He closed distance so well. He stayed in his face. His entries for his takedowns were fantastic. He picked Barriault up a couple times for, like, big takedowns. I mean, the guy is a force, and Omar kind of just said it, like, I don't know where the strength – he doesn't look like he should have the strength that he does, but the dude is no joke. And then when it hits the ground, he is a smothering and relentless grappler and striker in those scenarios. He's hitting you the whole time, too. And he rode Barriault the whole way. Every movement Barriault made to try to free himself, Hernandez was riding him, adjusting, and then he snatches up that choke about as suddenly as you can snatch a choke up. And next thing you know, Barriault is sleeping. Like, it went from no choke at all to a sleep in, like, 7 seconds or some shit. It was crazy. And, you can't do better than he just did. The dude is on a hell of a roll. He is a damn problem, and he's better and better every single time we see him.
I mean, he really puts it together really well. I mean, so Omar's point really makes me wonder, like, he's been training in MMA, and it just seems like he just listens to his coaches, and he just absorbs everything he learns in all of his classes, and he just puts it together. He does look good everywhere, and he has really good cardio, especially at middleweight. And, yeah, man, he gets it done. He looks good. Mark, where would you go with Anthony Hernandez next at 185 pounds?
This is another guy moving up the line like I did with Rodrigues. I feel like there's a bunch of guys in middleweight right now who are entertaining as hell. They're putting on good performances, and the UFC just kind of keeps taking them and, like, matching them up against another guy who's ranked, like, 30th. And, like, they kind of just keep fighting each other. I'm ready to jump some of these guys. Rodrigues is a guy who's looked impressive. Let's see him fight someone. Hernandez, same shit. That's 2 fights in a row where he has looked like mind-blowingly good. Like, holy crap, what is Anthony Hernandez doing right now? So I'm ready to jump this man as well. We have Brendan Allen fighting Krzysztof Jotko very soon. I think the winner of that fight and Anthony Hernandez would be fantastic.
Yeah, man. All right, Omar, give us your take on Hernandez's next opponent, potentially.
I also think the man should be shot up the rankings. I am curious, however, as to where you, Mark, have Edmen Shahbazian. Is he still at 185, this kid?
Yep, I have him at 18.
No.
I want to say
too low.
Shahbazian.
I want to say he had a rumor of a fight that I might have seen. Yeah, dude, he has a comeback fight against Dalsha Longiambula, which you would hope he wins that, or else the Edmen Shahbazian experiment is over with.
I think we may have mentioned this in a sphere at one point.
Yeah. That's why it was in my head. I remembered you said
it. Yes. Yeah, I want to give him somebody that's up in the rankings, somebody who I don't necessarily think really should be up there or hasn't shown that they should still be up there. So that was kind of why I was going with Edmund for that one specifically. If I had to go with a second one, I don't want it to sound super disrespectful, but I would probably give him Brad Tavares. I think that's a very, very real challenge for Anthony Hernandez. And honestly, I think he could live up to the hype there.
That's a great one, too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, is it worth it to mention any matchup for Barriault or no?
I don't think we need to.
Okay, let's go on to our lightning round. Okay, if this is your first time with us, first of all, thank you. Second of all, our lightning round, if you don't know, is where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quick takes on these fight recaps. So here we go. Going back down the card, but briefly we will reach back up into the main card. In the middleweight division, once again, John Pfeiffer defeats Alan Amedovski by TKO at 3 minutes, 55 seconds of the very first round. Omar, go first.
John Pfeiffer comes in with Joe Pfeiffer, comes in with some good...
did I say John? My bad. I'm reading it.
It's all good. I thought it was John after you said it, so it's not like I did any better. But yeah, he comes in with a good amount of hype off of that Contender Series win. All the hype that Dana White kind of put behind him. And he kind of delivered. It's a little bit difficult to take away a ton specifically from that fight just because it honestly just ended up looking like a bar brawl that turned into a man just knocking another man out. Didn't really go on for too long, and you can't really blame Pfeiffer for that. He did what he needed to do. His strikes were definitely clean. Distance management was definitely clean in the short amount of time we had to see him. So good on him for doing what he needs to do. I just think we still need to see a little bit more data from him before we can really kind of establish where he's at and where he's going.
Mark.
Yeah, I'm not going to act like Alan Amedovski is anything great because he's shown us that he's not. He's 0-4 in the UFC now. But all you can do is fight who's in front of you, and Joe Pfeiffer knocked that man out in style. He has some devastating power. Amedovski hit the mat. He had no idea where he was. He's staring up, trying to figure out what's going on. Pfeiffer has a hell of a backstory that makes you want to root for him, so I am intrigued to see this kid again.
All right, in the heavyweight division, Rodrigo Nascimento defeats Tanner Boser by a split decision, 30-27, and 2 scores, 29-28. Mark, what's your take?
This fight was Exhibit A for the Tanner Boser should go to 205 people. And there's always been these people. Obviously, he's one of the smaller heavyweights. You always hear it. He always says that he's doing just fine at heavyweight. Why would he move? He likes having his speed advantage, so on and so on, which he did have in this fight. But, man, every time Nascimento got his hands on Boser, he brought him directly to the ground, and then Boser had such a hard time getting up because of the size that was on top of him. And it's not just the size. Nascimento is a fantastic grappler, so there's more to it than just the size. But there's a lot of good grapplers at heavyweight, and there's a lot of big dudes at heavyweight. So when they're that much bigger than you, it's tough. So I wonder if Boser is kind of having that same thought after having a fight like that of just like, man, because I think it was 40-pound difference, 45. Like, he was significantly smaller in there. So I'm curious to see what he'll do. But obviously a big win for the career of Rodrigo Nascimento.
Omar.
Yeah, I didn't care for this fight, personally. This fight was very upsetting. It was more frustrating, I guess, than upsetting, because Tanner Boser, to me, was arguably the more active fighter in that fight. And Nascimento did what I feel a lot of people who are adept at the ground do. They kept it down there, but without ever actually presenting real challenges down there, right? It just
100%.
Focused on control, not really looking to finish so much. Tanner Boser, while he couldn't, tried to do as many things as he could to get out of that position. He tried to explode. He tried to do whatever he could. He's not at that level the way that Nascimento is. But it stalled the whole fight. The thing that was the reason why I would argue that Tanner Boser might have even won that fight is because all the damage that happened in that fight, for the most part, was from Tanner Boser. Mm-hmm. Like, whether it was on the ground or even the short bursts that happened when they were on the feet, it just seemed like Tanner Boser was getting the better of them in those exchanges. There was just so much time that Nascimento had in control that it is what it is. It was a split decision, so I'm not the only one who thought that way, but it was a frustrating fight.
All right, the featured bout on the prelims on ESPN Plus for UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Song, went down in the featherweight division with Damon Jackson defeating Pat Sabatini by TKO at 1 minute and 9 seconds of the very first round. Very anticipated fight. Omar, take it first.
Yeah, quickly we should mention that Damon Jackson's brother, his older brother, had passed away a week before this fight had gone down. And he seemed like he had been bottling everything up, and the man let absolutely loose in there, and really put it on Pat Sabatini, which, I know a lot of us had, different takes as to how that fight was going to go down and how we weren't really sure which way it was going to go. Both of these guys are extremely talented, very competitive in terms of what each of them bring to the fight. The Pat Sabatini got absolutely steamrolled in that fight. Damon Jackson just looked like a man possessed and completely obliterated him. Those shots were completely crazy. And I'm still a little torn as to whether Pat tapped to the strikes or not. He looked more out of it than aware.
He verbally tapped.
He did?
He verbally tapped.
That's what they announced. They said the verbal submission comes at the time of whatever.
I know what they announced. I'm just wondering if that's actually what happened.
Well, why would the dude have said it?
I didn't see it.
Okay. I feel like the ref must have told the who it wasn't Buffer. Who the hell was it? I can't remember who.
Was it Joe Martinez?
Yeah, it was Joe Martinez. Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, I don't know. I don't want to take too much away from Sabatini too, because to a certain extent he got clipped, right, and then just the follow-up just ended up happening. And Jackson is one of those guys that when you get in a bad position with him, chances of him letting you go are slim to none. And Pat Sabatini made a slight fuck up. He ate it. He ate a shot as a result and paid the fight for it. But the man is still a problem. He's still an absolute beast in that division. And Damon Jackson is just another one of those beasts that he ran into. And that day was Damon Jackson's day.
Mark. Your turn.
It sucks we didn't get to see this fight really play out. I was so intrigued to see how these guys matched up against each other in different areas, but it's MMA and shit like this happens, and this was honestly kind of a weird one because it didn't even look like that kick was thrown with that much power. It's just that it was thrown as Pat was moving his head right into it, and they met, and the combined impact was like one of those 1 in a million moments that just aligns, and Pat got rocked bad. And as Omar said, Damon Jackson is not a guy who's going to let you off the hook. He knows how to finish you when he's got you. And he did, and it's an enormous win for Damon Jackson. And he's another one of these guys who it's time to give a fairly big fight. Like, he's got to get his chance to start sniffing these rankings because he looks unbelievable right now.
All right, Mark, sticking with you in the welterweight division, Trevin Giles defeats Louis Koski by unanimous decision. What's your lightning take?
Honestly, neither guy did much in this fight. I was not thrilled with this fight. What is it, Koshi? Whatever his name, Louis.
Koski?
Louis wanted to wrestle. He couldn't get inside for the first 10 minutes. He finally did in the third round. Giles wanted to strike, but he was a little too concerned about letting things go because he didn't want to get taken down, and it gave us a whole lot of nothing. So even when it hit the mat in the third round, when Koshi finally got what he wanted, it was still a whole lot of nothing. So I didn't love it. I've only watched it once. I did think Giles maybe edged the first 2 rounds, but it was pretty underwhelming from both of them.
Omar?
Yeah, I'd agree. I gave Giles the first 2 rounds, but to be honest, by the end of the third round, I didn't really give a shit as to who won the rest of the fight. So
yeah,
that's just what it was.
Yep.
All right, heading on down in the women's strawweight division, Loma Lukbunmi defeats Denise Gomez by UD. Omar, what's your take?
Man, I don't. It must be because I've been training for the last year, but I love watching Loma Lukbunmi. Man, she is the way she sweeps the shit out of these girls is hilarious. It reminds me of half of these dudes at my gym who just like to do that shit for fun against other people. Like, the girl's got her against the cage. She thinks she's striking with her. Gomes thinks she's got the better of it. All of a sudden, Luma's just did a little outside trip, whoop, and there down she goes, right down to the ground. And it's absolutely hilarious. And the best part is, in Muay Thai, obviously, when you sweep somebody or you do some kind of trip, you don't follow them down to the ground, right? It's Muay Thai. They stop, they get back up. Luma's like, wait. You're telling me I can trip them and go down there with them and continue to hit them? What? And Luma's like, that was like her whole game now. It's like, she'll stand if you want to stand, but if you want to go down, she'll trip the shit out of you, and then she'll go right down with you and just start elbowing you. I'm enjoying it, man. She's not. I don't think she's like a future champion as of right now or anything like that, but I'm having a great time watching her. I'll tell you that.
Mark, what's your take of Luke Bunmi getting it done over Denise Gomes?
Identical take. Loma is such a good time, and I agree. Like, there's a ceiling on her. You know, I don't think she's like a top 10 contender, but she is hella entertaining. She's got style in there. She's got swag in there. This thing was a fucking war. Both of these ladies came to scrap. Both of them were trying to finish it in every way possible. But I just love watching Loma. Her Muay Thai is beautiful, even though she didn't really get to use it in this fight. But as Omar said, the sweeps were nasty. She showed off the grappling. You know, they went to war, and she was able to put on a show and get a nice W here.
The first fighter from Thailand in the UFC, apparently.
Wow. Gomes should be noted. Gomes was a little gangster in there. She was getting lit up and was still throwing, was still showing Luke Bunmi, I'm not going nowhere.
Subs here and there. Yeah, she was
working.
Also, real quick, I was surprised to find out Loma Luke Bunmi is all her nickname.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I
have no idea
her real name, but I did know that was not her name at all.
Yeah, I wonder what it means.
Her real name is Konklak Sufisara.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
If that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how it is, yeah.
If you're out there and you're listening or watching and you know Thai, let us know.
Yeah, fix that for me, please. Please hit me up with the pronunciation for that.
All right, let's keep plowing down through these fights. In the lightweight division, Trey Ogden defeats Daniel Zellhuber. I'm butchering his name. Zellhuber by unanimous decision. Mark, go first.
Man, I don't know if this was like a bright lights situation or what. Zellhuber is only 23, but man, this kid came in with some buzz, and he just absolutely fell flat. He forgot that he had a fight, and he stood in there and he did nothing, and he let himself get out activitied by a guy that it sure felt like he could have probably beat if he actually put something on him. And good for Ogden to get the win, and super underwhelming debut for Zellhuber.
Omar.
Yeah, super underwhelming fight overall, even for both sides. You know, Ogden was the more active one for sure, but there wasn't really a ton to take away from it on either side. Zellhuber really did shit the bed though, because he did come in with a ton of hype behind him, and he really didn't capitalize it. It's kind of like rolling, shooting a strike in bowling, and then getting a complete gutter ball in the next frame. It's like a complete waste. Totally. So hopefully he comes back and he puts on a performance in his next one that's more up to par with the expectation, because this one's not it, man. He's not going to stay much longer if he's just going to bounce around and measure for 3 rounds.
Yeah. Right. Okay, in the women's flyweight division, Jillian Robertson defeats Maria Agapova by technical submission by rear naked choke, 2 minutes, 19 seconds, round number 2. Omar, take it.
Damn, I was wrong. Like, wow. This is really wrong here. Agapova's ground game is fucking trash. It's so annoyingly bad. It was frustrating to watch too, because it seemed like a lot of things that were super obvious that I feel like a professional fighter who's in the cage should probably know, and then didn't. And then Robertson was her usual dog self, but there was something about, I don't know, I thought Agapova would be able to put something together on the ground, and it was the complete opposite. It looked like the girl had never been to the ground in her life. So good on Jillian Robertson for putting another one in her win column. Yeah, she really shoved me up that one, because that was a terrible performance from Agapova.
Mark, take it.
Yeah, I tried to tell you guys, man. This girl is lost off her back. She can snatch a little sub here and there, like out of a transition, but as soon as you put her on her back, she is lost. And at the end of round 1, she almost put herself into an arm triangle, which was absurd. Then at the end of round 2, she turns over to try to stand and just leaves her neck there for the rear naked choke. It's not good. And I will say props to Jillian Robertson, because she took a beating in round 1. I said this too. I said it's possible that Agapova just blitzes her, and it almost fucking happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Robertson took a beating, endured it, powered through to end up getting the W. But yeah, I mean, everyone's going to fight Agapova the same way at this point. And again, she's intriguing. She shows signs, but it's a hell of a weakness.
Yeah.
All right. In the bantamweight division, Javid Basharat defeats Tony Gravely by unanimous decision. All 3 judges, 29-28, giving Basharat 2 rounds to 1. Mark, give us your take.
I like this guy a lot. He delivered in every way. He's a skinny dude, but that man is legitimately a weapon. He absolutely digs body shots. It looks like they're going to come out the dude's back. He's stronger than he appears. He's crazy well-rounded. He can do it all. I sent you guys that text before where literally his betting odds on type of finish were plus 275 by KO, plus 275 by submission, plus 275 by decision. I've never seen that in my life. Shows you how well-rounded this dude is, and he is a name to watch, absolutely.
Omar.
Before I go into it, Mark, I'm curious, how did you have round 1 scored?
Basharat.
Yeah, so you had Basharat three rounds to none?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. As long as we're in the same boat, that's fine. Yeah, I was super impressed by Basharat. I'm not super high on Tony Gravely personally. I think he has his things that he's good at, but I don't really see like tons of potential in him the way I see in some other fighters that we've seen. But I definitely see it in Basharat. The kid looks really, really, really good. I'm very interested to see what we get from Barriault going forward. But like I said, I had him 3 rounds to none in the end of that fight. I was surprised that they gave the first round to Gravely. Maybe if I go back, I might understand more why. I wasn't.
I do remember feeling like round 1 was close in my head, but I haven't rewatched it or anything.
I don't know. At no point did I think Gravely was winning that fight, but maybe, like I said, maybe I need to go back and watch that fight.
Didn't he in the beginning of round 1? Didn't he land something big? But then Barriault recovered. I think that might be it. But after that, it was all Barriault
Yeah, and I knew at some point that Gravely was going to have to land something. The man is and I said it last week. The man's so compact and his hooks are so fucking strong. One shot was going to probably put somebody down on his butt, but Barriault's a beast, and his pace is crazy. So, like I said, interesting to see what we get from him going forward.
Okay, one more in the lightweight division. Nicholas Mota defeats Cameron Van Camp by TKO. 3 minutes, 49 seconds, round number 1. Omar, go first.
I would love to say I was impressed by this performance, but not super impressed. The real issue is Van Camp presented way too many opportunities for him to get knocked out. He fought a very here's my chin performance throughout the entirety of that fight. I maybe it's because I've never been a tall person and I've never felt like a tall person, even after your growth spurt and all that other shit. This whole thing where tall people keep their chin up in the air is weird to me. Like I don't understand it. Like just put your tuck your chin, dog. Tuck your chin, hide it behind your shoulders, behind your punches. Like this thing where like you go back here, like where are you going, dog? What are you doing? And it works never. Like never.
It works never. It's
true. It works. Yeah. Like we've seen it time and time. Stefan Struve never worked for him. James Vick lost an entire career because it didn't work for him. It doesn't work. I don't know why we're still doing this and why coaches allow their fighters to go out there with that tendency. I don't know.
Yeah. James Vick is the biggest offender to me. He just could not stop hanging his chin in the air.
Yeah.
I give credit for Mota to Mota for his ability to eventually, because you could see throughout the time that we did have in the first round, he's trying to find that chin. He's trying to calculate the distance. He's trying to calculate the timing. He's trying to get that shot. He sees it, and it took him a little while to get there, but it just, I don't know, man. There were way too many opportunities in that fight for Van Camp to get knocked out that it was just infuriating. I guess when it finally happened, it was like, didn't even try.
Okay, Mark, take us home.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, anyone who watches fighting watched the first couple minutes of that fight with Van Camp walking around with his hands down and his chin up and knew how that thing was going to end. So, yeah, props to Mota. He found the off button sooner rather than later, and I bet him by first round KO. So thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate it.
Boom.
Nice.
And that does it for this week's lightning round. Okay. What's next? Next is finding out who rose and who fell off of this weekend's UFC Fight Night in Mark's very own rankings system that he keeps up, which we call the Priaulx Rankings. Mark.
I may have the least that I've ever had to report.
Okay.
A lot of fights, like I get like one we discussed, for example, Hernandez versus Barriault, where Hernandez is already like 20 spots above Barriault. So, yes, he wins, but what's he going to move up? Maybe like one spot, like a ton of fights like that. So no really big movement to report. The only one I have is a riser. It is at heavyweight. It is Rodrigo Nascimento. Kind of gets his first legitimate win on his resume by taking out Tanner Boser. So he jumps from number 28 to number 22. And other than that, it was a lot of moves of like one or two spots. So that's all I really got for you guys.
Nice. Okay. That being said, let's hop right into our next segment and find out what's going on in the headlines of the mixed martial arts world with our Omar segment Inside the MMA Sphere. Omar.
All right. What is going on? Let's see here. Oh, before I start, it turns out I can't watch the Li Jing Liang replay as we discussed last week because they don't have it on ESPN Plus yet for rewatch.
Dude, you know what I didn't fucking think about? I should just gave you my credentials and you could have watched it. I didn't even.
Oh.
When we were just texting about it, I never even thought about it.
It's too late.
We can do that for next week. People are just gonna have to wait one more week.
But
That's okay.
we will get to this because I am going to rewatch this fight, and I want to see if I feel the same way I did when I watched it, or if I feel differently the second time around. But just wanted to let people know because I know some folks were talking about it on the YouTubes. All right. So let's get into it right off the bat because I'm sure we all have something to say about it. It was definitely the most important news of the week. Jose Aldo has officially retired from MMA, has left the UFC. His UFC contract has been released officially by Dana White. So it seems like he's done. There's a lot of speculation as to, what caused it and why now and all this other stuff. I called this shit. I told you he was going to retire. I told you if he wasn't fighting for a real chance at the belt, I didn't think he was going to keep fighting, and I think he didn't think that was going to be a thing. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at there. Jose Aldo was...
Sorry,
Oh, go ahead, man.
Can we just talk about the decision first before we talk about the man?
Yeah.
I think this is a terrible decision, and I hate it so much. And I don't even mean because I'm a Jose Aldo fan, which obviously I am. I just don't think it makes any sense. I hate seeing a guy walk away when he is still at the top of the game and seemingly frustrated with a performance. No one beat Jose Aldo. No one whipped him. No one turned him back. No one did anything to give him this feeling of I can't hang. It's time for me to go. He got held against the cage. That is all that happened. He didn't even get hurt. I literally don't think he was hurt in any way in that fight. He got held against the cage. He got frustrated. I get it. If he won, he was going to be getting a title shot, almost certainly. He didn't win. He's super frustrated. Obviously, he's been in the game a long time. He was trying to make this bantamweight run. I get it. I get the frustration. But to have looked as good as he has looked in his last 3 fights, beating Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz, Rob Font. The dude has looked fantastic lately. So I don't care that he's old. I don't care any of it. And he's not even that old. I don't like that his coaches, when he has looked this good, are not being like Jose. I know how bad you wanted to have another title. Be a champion in 2 weight classes. Get your shot at the bantamweight belt. You are still incredible. I get it. You're frustrated. You got held against a cage. You're Jose Aldo. They're not going to be go fight number 15 dude. You're going to fight someone who is very close to this top 5 in your next fight. And if you win it, you might be in a title eliminator in the very next fight. You might need 2 wins, and then you're fighting for the title. So I don't get how they don't push him to do that. If he loses again, and then he's okay, I get it. I totally get it if he was to lose again. Right now, I don't get how there are not people in his ear dude, don't give up on what you were pushing for just because you got held against a cage for 15 minutes. It's still right there. Mm-hmm. It's still attainable. So I'm frustrated. And I will clarify, who knows what's going on in Jose's personal life? Maybe he feels very strongly himself I don't want to do this anymore. And in that case, who am I to say no? But it doesn't seem that way. It seems like he's just kind of frustrated about that he didn't get his title shot, and I wish someone could be in his ear a little more strongly.
Yeah.
My take.
I tried to put some invisible dots together. You know what I mean? He posted first about his kid. He recently just, him and his wife recently gave birth to what I'm assuming seems like his first son of the family. And so he looked super emotional in those photos. Shortly after that came the announcement of his retirement. It just seemed like it was a decision based off of a lot of different circumstances, probably not just the fight itself, probably the new addition to the family, probably wanting to be around more. Chances are he missed a lot of things with his first kid because he was Jose Aldo at the time. Makes you wonder if he wants to miss all of the same things that he missed then with the one that he has now, that he has a second shot. God knows he doesn't need to fucking prove anything to anybody when it comes to that side of things, the fight game or anything like that. So I'm not mad at it. I wish the timing was better. I wish it, to your point, Mark, I wish it made more sense. But at the same time, the man has given us such legendary shit that he doesn't need to be fighting anymore. He just doesn't. And
he doesn't.
I'm kind of okay with it. Yeah, and I'm okay with it. He really has given us memories, for the ages.
His legacy is bulletproof.
100%. 100%. And I would stand there and argue with the best of them that he's a bigger GOAT than Khabib. Any day of the week.
So will I. I'll fucking argue that all day.
Any day of the week.
Did I send you guys? Oh, yeah, I did. I sent you guys that post. I forget who tweeted it, but the guy said, with Jose Aldo retiring, I've been thinking about the top 5 MMA fighters ever, and I've come up with this list. Not Khabib. Fucking killed me. Cracked me up.
Yeah. But yeah, man, Jose has given us some of the some great legendary performances. The fights with Faber's leg basically almost trying to explode on itself from all the leg kicks that he absorbed there. Breaking Cub Swanson's face, being the WEC champion into the UFC champion and holding the belt for so long and being seemingly unbeatable, and then essentially really sparking the rise of Conor McGregor, right? Solidifying the rise of Conor McGregor at that point, being part of that storyline forever. The wars with Max Holloway, regardless of the fact that he lost those fights. I mean, the man has put his body on the line for the better part of 2 decades at this point, and we've watched the minimum of maybe at least one of those decades, and it's been a pleasure. It's been it's been one to remember for sure.
What a legend, man!
What a
freaking legend. I heard whispers that he's going to box. What do you guys think? You think he's going to box in one of these newfangled boxing glorified exhibitions?
I don't know. He's always kind of been mentioning that he would like to box, so I could see it happen.
I don't know if he does anything, to be honest. He's got so many little ventures outside of the fight game that from a money perspective, he doesn't need to do a damn thing. No. He's a king in Brazil. He owns
the king of Rio
hamburger. He owns these hamburger shops. He's got all these other little side businesses that he has, with his branding and stuff like that. So financially, I think he's more than set. And like I said, I really think the baby has something to do with it. That's my personal take from it. Yeah. And I think he just wants to stay at home dad this shit because he didn't get a chance to do it at all when he was, when his daughter was younger.
Jose is one of these guys who, no matter what was happening in his career, no matter if he was coming off a win, off a loss, off anything, every time you saw him walking into a cage and standing across from someone, you felt like you were, like it was a gift for you to be watching him. Like you were watching someone special. He just, he had that, and he earned that. He earned that through freaking blood and wars. I mean, this dude didn't lose for 10 years running up to Conor McGregor. I think it was 18 fights leading up to the Conor McGregor loss. He had been the WEC champ. He gave us all these moments in the WEC. The Cub Swanson flying knee, TKO and Mike Brown. As Omar said, the way he picked apart Uriah Faber like no one else had to that point. Faber was looking like he was unstoppable at that point in time. Then he becomes the inaugural UFC featherweight champion, which was awesome, seeing him come to the UFC and hold that belt. And then just the run that he goes on in the UFC. I mean, there's so many moments that he had that I'm probably going to skip moments. But the KO of Chad Mendes with the knee, where he jumps the cage and he runs into the crowd, and the crowd is carrying him around in Rio, which is really when that King of Rio nickname was born. His fights with Frankie, I mean, taking out Korean Zombie. It goes on. And then even the build-up to Conor. I know he loses the fight in 10 seconds, and I always think, man, I would love to see that fight actually play out, and we're never going to get to see that, obviously. But the whole build-up, like, what they were able to do with that rivalry, like, the dude is just a star. He is a legend, and then he comes back off of that and keeps it up and reinvents himself add a new weight class, gives us even more classics. I mean, he just beat a guy recently in Chito Vera who we're talking about fighting for a title. Like, this dude is still at the absolute top of the game all these years later. What year was WEC's debut? Please hold. Debuted in the WEC in 2008. It's fucking about to be 2023. This dude, if he kept fighting, is still at the top of the game.
Yeah.
His legacy is bulletproof. I will never forget watching this guy. The leg kicks that he used to have in the earlier half of his career are probably the most disgusting leg kicks we have ever seen in MMA. There was a series done. I forget what website did this, but you can look at it. I think it was called The Night I Fought Jose Aldo, and it's all these dudes who fought him giving interviews and discussions of what it was like to fight him and how they were like not the same afterward, and the way that the condition their legs were in and all this. I mean, the guy is a legend among legends, and I'm pretty upset that I'm not going to get to see this dude fight anymore. But a lot of memories from Jose Aldo.
Yeah, man. Well said. I think I remember that article that you're referencing.
Yeah.
And that was in the lead up, I believe, to the Conor fight.
It might have been.
What else you got, Omar?
Oh shit! I got swept away in the whole announcement of it. I forgot what the hell we were here. Well, I guess to finish it off here, Jose Aldo, we appreciate you. Good luck in retirement. Enjoy the family, and we thank you for everything. Well, one door closes, another one opens, and as Jose Aldo exits, Marlon Moraes brings his ass right back into the MMA world and exits retirement. It's almost like trying not to have a walk of shame after like a one night stand or something. You just announced retirement. It was like I held my breath for longer. Anyway, he returns from retirement and enters the 2023 PFL season. He is no longer with the UFC. I'm assuming he fought out his contract. And he is now with PFL for the upcoming season along with Marreta Santos. So that will be interesting to see how that 2023 season plays out.
Class.
No, not in the same weight class, thank God. But around the same seasonal time. So, yeah, that'll be interesting.
Elizu's former UFC guys. They still Burgos. A lot of guys crossing over.
Yep, and they got the money to do it, man. They might as well.
Oh yeah. And
these guys need to be getting as much money as they can, as quick as they can, because this is the game you got to be in for a good time, not a long time.
I just actually realized it. They've never even had bantamweight, I don't think. So I think it's brand new for them having a bantamweight division. Pretty sure.
You should check that. I'm not sure, actually. Elizu Zaleski, I believe is how you pronounce his name, has been suspended for 1 year for testing positive for Osterin.
No, that's my guy, man. I always fucking talk about him, how he doesn't get his shot.
Well, your man was shooting something.
What did you do?
I don't know the specifics of what Osterin is. I did look it up and I just didn't write it down. But he did get suspended 1 year for it. Him and his team are very much like, very Pikachu face about it. Like, what? But, these things happen and looks like he's taking it on the chin, and he'll be back when his suspension's over.
Wow.
Next on the list, Sarah McMahon has actually completed her contract with the UFC and is currently looking at other options outside of the UFC. So that'll be kind of interesting to see if she ends up going to Bellator or going to PFL or something like that.
Wait, would you say Sarah McMahon is done?
She's done with her UFC contract.
Because that counted as a fight?
I guess.
When Ladd pulled out?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So she's shopping around right now. I'm assuming once they make weight, that's the fight, right? I think, right there.
Yeah.
But that'll be interesting. I wonder if she will end up going to Bellator or going to PFL. I can't imagine the UFC is going to pay her a ton of money to re-sign her. So I don't know if we see her back in the UFC at this point.
Bellator, she'd have to be 45 because they don't even have a 35. They
I don't
literally
think
have
she'd
25
hate it,
and
though.
45.
She'd be fine at 45, I would think.
Yeah. And PFL would probably be same deal. So she'd kind of have to almost be a 45er if she goes to one of these. Hey, her and Kayla Harrison could be kind of interesting. As a little test for Kayla. Not like I'd pick, I'd be picking Kayla, but I'd watch.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have been following this Dana White Contender Series kid, but 17-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. Has won his Contender Series. This kid came in with a ton of hype. He's only 17 years old, like I said, but people already know his name. And currently, did win his fight and became now the youngest fighter on the UFC roster officially. So we will be seeing him sooner rather than later. Ever.
But
At 17 years old.
Yeah, ever. Youngest signee ever.
Yeah. He does vow to break John Jones' record as the youngest UFC champion, which he's got a lot of years to break that record, to be honest. He's got 7 years before he doesn't make that a thing. So he seems like he's talented. Yeah, I love the confidence.
Yeah.
He seems talented. What he showed in that cage, there was a lot of creativity. I don't know how well that's going to translate once you start getting into real fighters, but he's a kid and he's going to be learning. And I think his growth is very interesting to watch. So again, his name is Raul Rosas Jr. Definitely keep an eye on him. We'll make sure to announce on him when he comes into a fight here.
What's really impressive about him to me is he is creative, but he's very aggressive. He's a very aggressive grappler. He just goes for it and he puts out 110% effort on everything. And he also, I'm a little butthurt about it because he beat my guy Mondo Gutierrez, who I announced in the XFC, and he was electric in the XFC. I mean, Mondo Gutierrez, I hope will be back. I think he'll be back. When I got to watch him ringside or cage side in the XFC, dude is special. I'm telling you guys, he's a Michigan guy, has a huge following here. And definitely, there's an aura about him, and he just seems like he's bound for big things as well. And he just happened to run into a 17-year-old freight train grappler at 135 pounds. So, hats off to Rosas Jr. And I'm hoping to see Gutierrez back in Contender Series at some point.
Yeah, that's a strong ass 17-year-old kid.
Oh my God!
I don't know what the hell they're feeding him, but he's super. He seems super strong.
Yeah. I saw that little flying knee he did into a takedown. That was pretty unique.
Yeah, 100%. But my thing is, it looks cool and everything until you get timed off of somebody who's really good at striking. You know what I'm saying? Like it's fun to watch. I'm intrigued. But that kind of shit can't go down forever. And so I still need to see what else you got. That's all. That's where I'm at. I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
For sure. Very intrigued. For a 17-year-old? Wow.
For 17, absolutely. 100%. There's some news about Joe Rogan. He's just kind of talked about how in his contract, when Dana White leaves the UFC, he's done with the UFC. So people need to stop asking him when he's going to retire, because he's not. And I'm kind of okay with that. Seems like it would be a change of an entire era once Dana White leaves anyway. So
and Rogan.
Seems about right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Both of them leaving together would make sense. Yeah. Hang on now. Jermaine Durandame. I did it. She announces her pregnancy at 38 years old, and she will not be walking into the cage anytime soon. So congratulations to her and her family.
Congrats.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Wonder if that's the last time we're going to see her, because she hasn't fought in a while anyway.
Yeah, and fighting I don't think was ever really it was never a priority for her. It always seemed like something she did for herself, like on the side, because I think being a police officer was her number one thing.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Fighting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a police officer.
She's still a cop?
She never stopped, I don't think.
Wow, good for her.
Yeah. Last on the list of news is Cody Garbrandt's fight has officially been pulled from UFC Fight Night 211. There was no replacement opponent to put in there, so they've just scrapped the whole thing. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see Cody Garbrandt. So. I did hear Cody Garbrandt got hurt afterwards, but it just seemed like the whole thing was going to hell anyway.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if it was one of those, he was already hurt but didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then now,
but
quick update on UFC 280. So Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady will be fighting at 280, but they will be the preliminary bout. I'm assuming the featured preliminary bout on UFC 280. So the one basically right before the main card. And they will be putting Caitlin Chukagian versus Manhoef into the main card instead. So the main card currently is looking like Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw, Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley, Beneil Dariush versus Matsuyuki Gamrot, and Caitlin Chukagian versus Manhoef. So still a solid main card, but kind of a weird flex because
I wish
Bilal Muhammad didn't
personally.
Yeah. My guess is they want people. They probably want people to watch the prelims, and something tells me Bilal and Sean Brady probably sell the prelims a lot better than Chukagian and Fior. So
yeah, it just felt. I mean, Chukagian and Fior is a great fight, but it felt more absurdly stacked when Bilal was on the main card with Brady.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into some fight announcements and some updates here, and we will head into this upcoming Bellator card.
Hey, you want to touch on Eddie quick first before you get into the fight announcements?
I didn't even write it down. Yes. Well, no, I did. Did I not? Oh, I didn't. Yes, let's do that. So it looks like Eddie Alvarez is another one who will be joining the ranks of the PFL.
Wait, really?
No, hang on. Sorry. No longer with one championship.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, holy shit.
Bugging. This is why we write things down, kids.
Yeah.
Speculating that he's going to PFL, right?
Yeah. Officially a free agent is the news on Eddie Alvarez. He has amicably parted ways with ONE FC. He had nothing but good things to say about his time there. But he has parted ways, and I'm glad he did, because it seemed like everyone in that division that he had a fight in with the whole rehydration thing was significantly bigger than him. It just didn't feel right to see him fighting in that division. And I'm kind of pumped about it. We've been talking about him a couple times on this show recently. I mean, the guy is 38. Who knows exactly where we're at. But Eddie's the man. He's always a good time. He's always in a good scrap. And I don't know if there's an avenue where he comes back to the UFC. I feel like Dana doesn't usually sign the older fighter who's been in the organization before. Like, once they're out, I feel like he kind of just lets them float wherever they end up. So I don't know if that is on the table necessarily, but if he went back to Bellator, I think that'd be pretty dope. They could even have him and Pitbull, or him and McKee. Like, those are dope fights. And I could also see him going to PFL for sure and trying to chase $1 million. So I'm in for either of those things. I miss watching Eddie fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If there's one thing that concerns me about Eddie at this point, it's his physicality, his physique. Eddie's always kind of been a obviously in shape and all this other shit, but he seems to have bulked up quite a bit. And I can't tell, because he's always got, workout shit on. I can't tell if it's like muscle or if it's fat, if it's going to come off easier than not. But the man looks big. And to have him go down to, 155 seems like a feat right now for him. The man seems squarely, he looks like 170 pounds.
I mean, he's fucking not, though. Like, he should not be fighting at that weight.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. He looks puffy, but at the same time, like, is he really going to lose all that weight? Like, are we going to go back down to 155 all the way after having spent the last few years having fought at 170?
But that was 170 without a cut, right? Is what he had to do. So you would hope it's not terribly different.
But it's 38 now. Like, he's not.
I mean, sure.
I don't know.
I'm looking at him.
He's not out of shape. He's not like he's fat.
No, but I see what you mean. Even his face looks a little round.
Like poofy. A little poofy. A
Not
little
in
fluffy.
the most recent one, though. Not in the most recent one, but the couple before that it did.
Okay. All right, well,
I
there
don't
might
know.
be some hope there for Eddie.
We will see. Yeah, he looks a little puffy.
A little puffy.
I mean, the dude wasn't fighting. Maybe he was just enjoying his time, and now when he signs, he'll be back in shape.
I'm just concerned about the weight. That's where I'm at, right? It's
That's
like
the
if he
first
can go
guy
back down to
who's maybe
155 and he's
puff.
fine.
I mean, he's still not as fat as Paddy Pimblett, and Paddy fights every few months, so.
Who the hell knows how Paddy
Amazing.
Pimblett does that shit, though?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. So, a couple of fight announcements here. Giga Chikadze is out against Sadiq Youssef on the October 1st Vegas card. So, Sadiq Youssef will now be facing Don Shanice. Or Shanus? I think it's Shanus. He'll be fighting him on October 1st instead. Dusko Todorovic versus Jordan Wright has been added to UFC Vegas 62 on October 15th. Shamil Abdurahimov versus Hilton Almeida has been added to UFC 280 on October 22nd. Bryce Mitchell versus Mavsar Evloyev has been added to UFC's November 5th event. And last but not least, Bruno Silva is out against his fight with Albert Duraev, who will now be facing Mikhail Olegchaychuk at UFC Vegas 66 on December 17th. And that is all I have for you boys.
Woo!
Nice.
Thank you, sir. All right, boys. Let us now look ahead to this coming weekend's MMA action. This time, not in the UFC. There's no UFC this weekend. But we have Bellator action. Bellator 285. Bellator MMA in Dublin. So it's going down in the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. The main event being Benson Smooth Henderson against Peter Queally. I was saying to Omar before we started recording, people from Ireland have the most Irish last names. Like, they don't play. Like, super Irish names in Ireland. Peter Queally. Yeah. You just want to say it with the Irish brogue, right?
Yeah.
It kind of begs you. Anyway, we're going to talk about, break down, and predict 3, I believe, of these fights from Bellator 285. But, gentlemen, any other fights or fighters that you want to spotlight for our viewers and listeners right now?
Omar, do you have any, or you want me to handle this?
No, bro, I don't know nobody on this card, man.
So, it's a decent card, to be honest. There's things worth watching throughout this card. I'll give you a handful. Carl Albrechtsen is a light heavyweight in Bellator who has a very legitimate resume. We've talked about him on here before a couple times. He's fighting Carl Moore. He's a guy who I feel like already should have kind of got jumped into somewhere near this title picture, fighting a bigger name, Albrechtsen, but for some reason it's going a little slow with him. So if he takes out Carl Moore, I think maybe we might finally get there, and he's like a 5-1 favorite, so he's somebody to watch for sure. Another one, similar boat, is Brett Johns. We know how good Brett Johns is, former UFC fighter. He has still, in his career, only lost to 3 people: Aljamain Sterling, Pedro Munoz, Danny Sabatello. That's pretty good competition for his only 3 losses. He's fighting Jordan Winsky on this card. He's also a big favorite. I would watch him. A potential scrap on this card is Georgi Karkanyan versus Kane Musa. Both these guys have been up and down at this point in their careers. Neither's really at the upper level of lightweight in Bellator, but I think this one might be a scrap. So I would tune into that one. And then you have a kid, Kieran Clark, who's kind of one of these Bellator plucks these guys out who have small records and they kind of build them up. But he is 6-0 now. He's looked very impressive. So he's fighting Raphael Hudson. Obviously, he'll be the hometown boy in Ireland. He'll probably have big crowd support. So it'll be interesting to see what Kieran Clark can do. And then one other fight that we are not going to break down, though it's on the main card, is Leah McCourt versus Diana Silva, which is kind of a big fight at women's featherweight to shake that out. Leah McCourt recently fought for a title, but this one's tight odds. Silva will be an intriguing matchup for her, so that's another one. So really, there's a handful of fights on this card with intrigue beyond the 3 that we're going to preview here.
Okay. Well, here we go. Working up the card, we're gonna start with Mads Burnell versus Pedro Carvalho. Mads Burnell, of course, the 28-year-old from Denmark, 16-4 as a pro. He's 5'8", by the way. Only one win by knockout, but 9 wins by submission. He's coming off of loss against Adam. How do you say his name? Borix. Across the Bellator cage, Pedro Carvalho, the game, 27-year-old from Portugal, 5'11", 12-6 as a pro. More well-rounded record, 2 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 4 decisions. Also coming off a loss. So both of these gentlemen are looking to get back in the win column. Mark, give us a take first and your pick.
All right. Mads is a pretty big favorite here. He's minus 400. Most of the bouts on this card are pretty wide other than the main event. But Mads is minus 400. Pedro is plus 350 as the dog. Pedro Carvalho is a solid fighter. He's had his moments in Bellator. He could possibly trouble Burnell with range striking, but I got to go Burnell here. He's a dog. If anything is not going his way in this fight, I think he just makes it ugly. I think he clinches. I think he goes, for the infighting, takedowns, possibly grappling, etc. I think it's really all in his favor in terms of where this fight's going to take place, and I think he'll bring it to where he needs it to, or change the pace the way he needs it, if he needs to make it a dogfight, something along those lines. And that's what I think he does. I think he just makes it into a scrap. I think that he is very good. I think that he will win this and stay right near the top of this Bellator featherweight division. I know he kind of had his momentum stunted a little bit by Adam Boric, who's also very good and is going to fight for the title now. But I like Mads, and give me him here. I think maybe land some punches that kind of stun Carvalho, presents a sub, and Mads taps him in the 3rd round.
Nice. Omar, anything to add? Did you take a pick?
I would have to agree. I like Mads Burnell as well. I think his game is very smothering. He's a very exhausting fighter to look at. The man is constantly trying to either get you to the ground or work once you're on the ground. I think he drowns Pedro personally, and I think it starts early, and I think it happens often. I think he gets the 2nd round, and Pedro is probably pretty worked up until that point. I think Mads Burnell is going to be able to find a submission from there. I go 2nd round submission, Mads Burnell.
Yeah, I think Burnell's found more success in Bellator, and I agree. He is a relentless fighter, especially when it comes to being on the ground. So I agree. I think he's going to find this fight to the ground, and he's going to finish it on the ground. I'm going to go Burnell, TKO, I'll say round 3. Okay. Co-main event. It's a fun one. Going down at 205 pounds in the Bellator light heavyweight division. Yoel, Soldier of God, Romero, taking on Melvin Manhoef. Whew. Man, what a matchup at Bellator. So Romero, of course, long tenure in the UFC. Recent transplant over to Bellator. He dropped his first fight under the Bellator banner to Phil Davis. And then he got his first Bellator win against Alex Polizzi at Bellator 280 back in May by TKO, doing Yoel things. Also at 205, by the way. In the UFC, he was always at 185. If you don't know, Yoel Romero is 45 years old, and he still looks like he's 25. Originally from Cuba, he is 14-6 as a pro. No way. That's his record as a pro, and he's that old? He's only 14-6? Don't you think he would be like 38-10?
Yeah. I mean, dude, he started kind of late, and he never fought that often.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Has never won a pro MMA bout by submission, but he does have 12 knockouts. That's a pretty significant 86% finish rate by knockout. Melvin Manhoef, who you think of Manhoef as an old fighter, but he's only 1 year older than Yoel Romero at 46. He's a 46-year-old from the Netherlands. He is 32-15 with 1 draw, 2 no contests as his record. out of his 32 victories, he has a better finish rate than Yoel Romero with 29 knockouts. That's a 91% finish rate.
The only way he wins fights.
The only way he can win fights. He does have 3 decisions on his record, but generally speaking, he only wins fights by knockout. This is going to be... Someone's going to sleep in this fight. Someone's going to sleep. Real quick, one last thing. Melvin Manhoef coming off of a loss against Cory Anderson back in November of 2020 at Bellator 251. Omar, let me throw this over to you first. Give us your take, your breakdown, and your pick of Romero versus Manhoef.
Melvin Manhoef also coming off of a spectacular win against a bunch of dicks who tried to rob him. So can't forget about that.
That's true.
This fight is super interesting, and I feel like it really shouldn't be, but it really is. Melvin Manhoef has been around for ever at this point. I believe started off in the Muay Thai scene and then worked his way into the MMA scene, was quite successful. I don't think as successful as he was in the Muay Thai scene, but definitely stepped up in competition and has done well. Yoel Romero is Yoel Romero, and there are a lot of things I can see from both sides that can make this very interesting. Leg kicks from Melvin Manhoef are a real thing. Like, we talked about Jose Aldo here and his leg kicks and legendary leg kicks and how it changed the game and, in his fights and things like that. Melvin Manhoef has the same type of leg kicks that Jose Aldo has for the most part, right? When he throws those kicks, he's throwing those kicks to literally rip your leg off. That is pure Muay Thai leg kick right there. Yoel Romero isn't the best at like getting away from shit, and he's not the best at checking things all the time. And to his credit, the man, he looks like a piece of steel, so I'm sure it takes quite a bit for him to feel anything in the first place. But Melvin's not that dude you want to try that with. At least I wouldn't think so. To the same point, Yoel's explosiveness, Yoel's ability to carry power in his hands, Yoel's reckless ass wrestling where he doesn't control anybody, but he can flip Melvin like if he was a pizza dough. It's all of that is very, very intriguing, and I can't even really tell you how specifically this is going to go down. What I will say is I think Yoel Romero is just more experienced. I think he's a better fighter overall when it comes to MMA. This was a straight Muay Thai fight, I think we'd have a different conversation. But with this being an MMA fight, I think Yoel Romero is going to have the upper hand here. I think he eats shit. I think his leg does get a bit torn up by the end of this fight, no matter how it goes. But I do think Yoel Romero ends up winning this fight. I think they get into a bit of a slugfest a little bit later on down the road. I'm going to go with TKO, round 3, Yoel Romero.
Okay. Mark, give us your take and your pick of Romero versus Manhoef.
MMA is a crazy fucking sport. If I had told you, what was it, maybe 5 years ago when they fought? I'm not even sure. When Yoel's in there scrapping with Robert Whittaker, that like, oh yeah, a few years from now, he's actually going to co-main event an event against Melvin Manhoef in Ireland. You'd be like, what? Like, in what planet could that ever occur?
In Ireland, yeah.
Here we are. Just all of it. Like, him fighting, like, you wouldn't think Melvin was still fighting. You would think, why would he ever be matched up with Melvin Manhoef in any scenario? Why would it be in Ireland? Like, none of it would have made any sense. And here we are. And it still doesn't really make that much sense. I don't know why this fight is happening even now. But I do agree with Omar. It is oddly intriguing. I guess it's because of who we know Yoel Romero is and that he just can't be trusted as much as I love the guy and as unbelievable I think he is as a fighter. And when you have a guy who can't necessarily be trusted against a world-famous knockout artist, crazy shit can happen. So there is a little bit of intrigue here. And if you don't know Melvin Manhoef, this dude has been knocking guys out since you were, like, in diapers. Yes. And, like, he KO'd Mark Hunt. The dude is a legendary knockout artist. And I think this could be wild because I've heard Melvin say this may be the end for him and that he may be walking away here. So if this is his retirement fight, I could see him coming out here and just saying, fuck it. Like, I know I'm an underdog in this fight. I'm pushing for this thing from jump, and I'm going for the kill. Yeah. And he is dangerous no matter what his age is. And knowing Yoel, I don't think he's going to wrestle as much as obviously that would be the path of least resistance and the way to ensure a victory here. I think Yoel wants to get in there and exchange with Melvin Manhoef because that's just how his brain works. So it is interesting. I'm nervous about Yoel doing something stupid and blowing it, but he should win. He is significantly better at this point in their careers, and his peak was above Melvin's peak. I mean, Yoel's unbelievable. He can wrestle if needed. I don't know, like I said, if he'll even do it. But that aside, he's faster. He has plenty of his own power, and his striking has looked really slick lately. The striking that he put on display against Alex Polizzi was some of the nastiest striking and timing that we've ever seen from Yoel. So, and there was a calmness to it as well. So if he can bring that type of striking into this fight, I think he can be the one to put someone down here. And frankly, you have to pick Yoel Romero because he should not be losing to Melvin Manhoef at this point in time. So I will say that he can catch an aggressive Melvin in this fight. Give me Yoel Romero, round 2 knockout.
I like both your takes, and I agree. Skill for skill at this point, especially, even though they're only 1 year apart in age.
Yeah.
I think it's also part of the miles. Manhoef has almost 50, close to 50 fights, whereas
like triple almost, right?
Yeah, Yoel has 20 fights on his record. This will be his 20th.
Melvin's been kickboxing, as far as I know, since like the 90s. Yeah. And, Yoel, I'm sure, has probably been wrestling since then, but I would assume the wear and tear has got to be just a little bit different.
Melvin's MMA career started in 95.
Whew. Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. Crazy.
But, guys, where you're both wrong is that this fight is not getting out of the first round, okay? This is going to be a quick slugfest. Very exciting, might I add. Melvin Manhoef is going to catch Yoel. Yoel does not have the best movement. He's going to hurt him with the leg kick. He's going to rock him on his jaw, and he's going to start doing Melvin Manhoef things. He's going to rush him. He's going to be super aggressive, and Yoel's going to catch him. Yoel's going to hurt him right back, but Melvin's not going to have the better chin here. And I think Romero's chin is going to win the day, and he's going to get him out of there from somewhere between the middle and the end of the first round.
I like that take. I could absolutely see that.
Okay, let's talk about this main event between Peter Queally and Benson Henderson. So Queally, he is a hometown boy for Bellator 285 going down in Dublin, Ireland. Peter, the showstopper, Queally, he is from Dublin himself. He's a 33-year-old from Ireland, 13-6 as a pro, also with 1 draw. Let's see, mostly decisions for him. 5'11". He's coming off a loss against Patricky back in November of 2021 by TKO. Benson Smooth Henderson doesn't really need a huge introduction here. He's one of the more well-known fighters in MMA. He also has been fighting for a minute. 38-year-old from Glendale, Arizona, 29-11 as a professional. Very well-rounded guy, brings a lot of skills into the cage, and he's coming off of a win against Islam Mamedov.
Yep,
Mamedov.
Bellator 273 back in January of this year. Mark, give us your take first of this main event between Henderson and Queally.
All right, we got Benson as a minus 205 favorite. Peter Queally is plus 165 as the dog, so fairly close. If you did not see Peter Queally's entrance last time he fought in Ireland, watch this time because it was awesome, the response that he got last time. He came out to Zombie, which I learned that night and never knew is a song about the Troubles in Ireland, which is funny because we were just talking about the Troubles before we started recording here tonight. And the crowd response was huge. It was a dope walkout, so I imagine it'll be similar here. My issue with this fight is that I don't feel comfortable picking either of these guys to win a fight ever. Benson Henderson, we've talked about multiple times on this show, just the way he fights now. He kind of lets fights get away. Sometimes he's not as aggressive as he should be. He can hang with anybody, but is he going to necessarily win? Is the decision going to go his way? And Peter Queally is a guy who, he's had his moments in Bellator, but I've never really believed that he is on this level. Like, he's been getting these fights recently against this upper level of the Bellator lightweight division, which, to be clear, is not even sniffing the UFC lightweight division, but that's a different conversation. And I don't know if I believe that he's on the same level as some of these guys who are up there, like a Patricky or a Benson or some of these other guys. So I'm struggling. I'm struggling to pick this fight a bit. Peter Quilly's a tough dude. He's going to come at you. He always comes at you. He makes you work. He has a 4.5-inch reach advantage over Benson, which could be a factor. And he's a big, strong dude as well. So in any grappling, as much as Benson might be the more technical grappler, Queally is very strong. He's going to have the support of the home crowd. Granted, that didn't work out for him last time that he fought here, but maybe different on this night. But I can't pick the guy. As much as I struggle to pick Benson, until I see Peter Queally, he has the one big win over Patricky, but it's when he cut Patricky, and he won via cut. Other than that, he just doesn't have it on his resume, and until I see it, I am struggling to pick it. So I'm going to go with Benson. I'm going to say that because of the fact that he still manages to give a close fight to anyone these days and is still so hard to hurt and so hard to put away, that Queally does not get him out of there and that rounds start going Benson's way as Benson starts to analyze what's in front of him a bit more. So I will say that Quilly's going to come out a little bit hot, but that Benson settles in and starts to control the fight. And Queally just ends up kind of a step behind as it's going on. So I will say Benson Henderson UD with minimal confidence.
Omar, give us your take on your pick.
I agree with everything that Mark said. I think where we disagree is I think I have less confidence in Benson winning a decision at any given time than I do Peter Queally. And that might not be supported by the numbers. And I'm totally aware of that. But Benson Henderson has always given me bad juju vibes when it comes to him needing to win a decision. Because even when he wins a decision, it's like, happened to be a split decision. Not really sure how that fight went. And it just, I don't know.
It's true.
It freaks me out to put my eggs in that basket. Both choices here are kind of like, what poison would you care for instead? I'm going to go with Peter Queally. I think Benson Henderson's going to shit the bed. And I think he's just going to let it fall into Peter Quilly's lap. I do think Benson Henderson is the better fighter, technically. But I think like we've talked about and how we were just talking about now, I just think he's going to give up the opportunities that he's going to need in order to really solidify this fight for himself. I even think it was bold to choose unanimous decision, Mark, but there you are. I'm going to go with Peter Queally. I'm going to go with Queally by split decision.
I'm kind of just envisioning a world where Queally comes out very hot with the crowd support, but that Benson survives whatever's going on, and Queally sort of tires, and Benson wins like rounds 4 and 5. So as long as Benson could get one of those earlier ones, I feel like he can do it, but who really friggin' knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I give the edge to Benson Henderson here for his experience, his cage time. I agree that I think it'll be a close fight, as most of his are. I mean, he has an alarming number of split decisions on his record. So many. You think the guy would learn at some point of like, man, why do I have so many fights that go to the judges and like nobody knows who won?
Yeah, Jorge did. Benson should have pulled a Jorge at some point in his career.
Right.
I mean, he says Benson all the right things in these press conferences. Right? He's like, Bellator pays me this much, and I feel really bad I haven't performed. Great. So that means we'll see you perform in your next fight, right?
Yeah.
So,
perhaps.
I'm going to go Benson. But given the fact that Queally is in his home country, and I agree, I think he'll definitely come out hot, and he's gonna be riding a ton of energy. I'm going to say Benson by split decision.
True, I didn't factor in the home country judging. Maybe I should be saying split and not UD.
That does it, boys. Not a whole lot to preview this week for this coming weekend, but we've done it again. Bellator 285 this Friday night on, I believe they're on Paramount or whatever platform that is or channel that is.
Or no, are they on Showtime these days? Yeah, Bellator's on Showtime these days,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's right.
Showtime.
Well, folks, instead of a trivia question this week, I thought it'd be fun to have a prompt. This past weekend's UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Song, had seemingly an entire card of horrific cuts and some very memorable cuts, especially the main and co-main event. Both the main and the co-main event had horrible cuts.
Yep.
I want to ask you guys, what is the worst cut in UFC history, in your opinion? This is a subjective thing.
Man,
off the top
on the spot.
Maybe I'll rattle off a few that I've looked
Omar
at.
has one ready to go.
I was gonna say off the top of my head, Joe Lozon versus it's the one where Joe Lozon got opened up from the top, like basically the middle of his forehead all the way down, and he needed 30 stitches or something like that.
Dude, I can't even think of it.
I can't remember. I need to look. Hang on. If I see the name, I think I might know. But I can tell you right now, Joe Lozon had one of the worst slices in the middle of his face that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It must have been Jim Miller. I'm pretty sure it was Jim Miller.
Okay.
That did it to him?
Yep.
Okay, so let me rattle off a few. So just in recent memory, of course, just a few days ago, that fight night had a couple. The Song Yadong one was pretty bad. The Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues cut was very bad.
Yeah.
In UFC history,
is up there for the worst, man.
Yeah, it is. We have the Robbie Lawler cut.
So that's the one that came into my head.
Was that when he fought?
Yeah.
Rory or Condit?
That was Rory, right?
Yeah, that was Rory.
Yeah. Rory. You're talking about the lip one, right?
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
We have the Hallian Paiva cut that he got against Bontarine. Look it up. Terrible cut.
I'm trying to think. Oh, dude, speaking of lip cuts, maybe you're going to say it.
Oh, I'm going to say
that's
it.
where I was going to go there next.
Of course, there's Overeem.
Yes.
At the hands of
brutal.
Oh my God! Of
that was
Rosenstrike.
Rosenstrike. See that one? Wait, what do I have to look up? Hallian Paiva.
Paiva cut against Bontarine.
I can't remember.
Terrible cut. That's way up there, man. Way up there.
Oh yeah.
His eyebrow was hanging off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yikes! It is fucking shit.
Okay.
You know what?
Another
this
one.
Cut is not as bad as I remember it being.
Which one?
Which one? Lozon?
Now that I'm looking it up, the Lozon one. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay,
guys.
I have a couple other ones that you guys.
That Ream one might be it for me.
That
Just
might be it for
the way
me
that
too.
his fucking lip was. Oh.
Just a couple other ones that just to jog your guys' memory. Okay. On your computers, look up Cub Swanson against Aldo. The knee.
Yeah.
That ended that fight in about 5 seconds.
Dude. Yeah.
Split him open.
It was, yeah. That was a bad cut.
Okay, I got another one for
my
you.
Pick here, but that was a bad cut.
Evan Dunham. This one is horrific. What is this show?
I got
Evan Dunham against Sean Shirk. Talk about split open.
I remember that fight.
So there's one I now remember super vividly, and it was when BJ Penn kicked Diego Sanchez in the fucking head and just ripped Diego Sanchez's forehead right open.
That's
way up there. Way up there.
You know how long ago that was? That was so long ago,
ago.
we thought Diego Sanchez was going to be lightweight champion. That's how long ago that was.
But also, that's when BJ Penn was a god.
First of all,
100%.
We didn't think he was going to be lightweight champion because no one could beat BJ fucking Penn.
Dude, honestly, when that was going on, I thought he had a chance. I was like, Diego's got good wrestling. He's got good striking.
And Diego was popular, man.
To be fair, that fight was bullshit because Diego Sanchez fought it like a real dick because he did nothing in that fight. He tried to take him down for 5 rounds, and when he couldn't, he kept trying to take him down while getting his ass beat. It was the worst at that point too. That was the worst Diego Sanchez we had ever seen because that man was an absolute animal. No, in every fight leading up to that, he was a beast. And then he got to BJ Penn and was like, I don't know how to fight. I'm just going to hold on to him for 5 rounds. It was frustrating to say the least. I remember that fight.
Last one for reference. This is also a very bad cut. Do you guys remember a fighter named Miguel Torres?
Yeah,
of course.
Joe Benavidez cut Miguel Torres so bad.
Yep.
Didn't he sub Miguel Torres? Well, yes. I guess you can still sub a guy after you cut him. I don't know why I'm saying that.
That dude's skull was visible. I remember this.
I gotta find it. I can't remember.
His skull was visible. Yeah.
Oh, I kind of do remember this cut.
Terrible
I still can't find it. I'm Googling Miguel Torres cut. Nothing's coming up.
Hang on.
Joseph
Benavidez. Find it. Here.
Oh.
I just sent it.
Yeah. I remember some of these pictures now. Yeah, that's a fucking bad one. Oh, boy. That's a real bad
Frankly, everybody listening, these are all pictures you should look up if you're interested in this stuff because these cuts are gnarly.
Or pictures that you should avoid depending how you want to. Look at this.
Fuck that. Just don't look them up when you're eating. That's all. You'll be all right.
Dude, okay, the last one is a reach back.
Texted is such a bad one. Fucking shit.
And then there's also the last one. This is the last one. And this is more of a reach back. When Vitor Belfort was coming up, and he was just an absolute savage, he cut this guy named Marvin Eastman straight across the right side of his forehead.
Right? Oh, I thought it was on his eyebrow. I remember that.
Yeah, right across, like his above
just
his
sent
eyebrow.
Okay.
I just sent it to you guys.
Oh my god!
Good God!
Yeah,
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yep. There.
All that being said, and if anybody is listening or watching along and looking these up on your phones or your computers, let us know down below which cut you think is the worst in UFC history. I still think that Overeem's exploded lip is the worst one.
I do too.
It looks like he got shot in the face.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
And it's just
definitely
such a big gap. Like it's not like it was like a slit. Like it was like as if his lip was just partially chopped out, like missing.
Do you know why the Robbie Lawler one fucks with me a little bit more? Because
the blood came through the opening or whatever.
No, because he's still talking and like wrenching his mouth wide open while the cut is just getting worse and worse. I'm like, Robbie, shut your fucking mouth. Just stop talking.
One of my favorite things about that cut is at the end of that fight, he like roared. He like screamed. He was like,
And I'm just all I'm staring at is this the pie cut in his lip that's just getting bigger and bigger the more he screams. Oh, it was so freaky.
So bad.
Whew. Well, gentlemen, we've done it again.
Can't believe we went for 2 hours on kind of a quiet MMA week.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
There was enough goings on, I guess.
That's how we do things here.
Well, folks, enjoy the Bellator fights this Friday, going down in Dublin. So I don't know what the time zone difference might be for everybody, but that's it for us. We'll see you next week. We're going to break down Bellator and excuse me, have more UFC to talk about. What's
Bellator main card is at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Eastern Standard Time. And then next week we have UFC to look forward to. UFC Fight Night Dern versus Yan. Yan Xiaonan, that is. Exciting main event, women's strawweight division. Also, Cobain Sadiq Youssef.
That's my first thought.
Fight. Yeah, not bad. It's building.
Yeah, it's a random one.
Yeah,
it's not a pay-per-view, so it's fine.
It's a fight night. Although I love me some Mackenzie Dern, man. Who doesn't?
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
In that fight for sure.
All right, boys. Any parting shots before we get out of here?
Shout out to Matt Frivola for following me on Twitter. That's dope.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's legit.
He's like, who wants a free follow? And I hit him up. I tweeted back and I was like, hey, saw your fight in Tampa. I was like, saw your fight in Tampa. It was dope. And saw you on the plane on the way back from Tampa. That was dope. So yeah, looking forward to MSG fight. He was like, cool, and followed me. So yeah.
All right.
Cool, man. Quick announcement for me. The Muay Thai promotion that I work for in New York City, the Warriors Cup, promoted by Three Pillar Promotions, they have officially signed on to be a partner with One Championship.
Nice.
So One Championship, they're doing this thing called Road to One, where they have, I think it's going to be kind of like Contender Series, but for Muay Thai, and as well as, I think, MMA. And they have different Road to One promotions throughout the world. So the Warriors Cup in New York City is going to be the U.S. Road to One promoter in the United States.
Very nice.
So kind of fell into my lap, but I'll take it.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Hell yeah, man.
That's cool, man.
That's
So
awesome.
next year I'll be, I guess, I don't know if it's going to be streamed on One's platform, but we'll see. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you're announcing Mighty Mouse. It's perfect.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, man, I want my shot on Contender Series. I'm saying it right now on the airwaves.
Hell yeah.
I feel like, I think in this past year, they've cycled through a few different ring announcers. And if you don't know, on Contender Series, there is no ring announcer for the intros. There is no intros. They just start.
Right.
But there is a guy who goes in there and does the decisions. And I want my shot on Contender Series. Let's go. Whoever's listening, share this with somebody.
Yeah, whoever's
I'm ready.
listening with the Contender Series connects.
I'm ready.
Work them.
All right, boys. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right. Later.
Peace.